Welcome to Getting Context. Today I'm going to play a super old game for you. I will explain how I win this game and I will probably add some historical context. So I'm choosing to play the Confederate side, which should technically be a little bit more difficult. I'm choosing full intelligence, so I will see a little bit more from the enemy side, but that's to make it easier to comment on things. Um, I can do it over with limited intelligence, but it doesn't make much of a difference. And here we get the historical leader's abilities, which makes it a little bit easier because I know those abilities. They are listed in the game manual. They are sort of historical, so even without the game manual, it's not hard to guess. Random makes it a little bit harder. Later, if people are interested, I can play the same game, but with random leaders' abilities and limited intelligence. So let's start. I always mess this up. It asks the first word of the first paragraph or item that begins on page 13 of the manual is, but I don't know the manual, so I'm guessing, sort of. So I'm selecting very hard. I can go deeper into what exactly that does. One of the main things it does is that you lose more men to attrition if you don't feed and clothe them well or supply them well. So here you have to appoint your cabinet. You need balance. You can't appoint too many moderates. That's what the M stands for. You can't appoint too many radicals because then the moderates complain and you pay some political penalty, not a big one, but I don't recommend it. And you also have to respect uh, where they are coming from. So if you only appoint uh, politicians from the eastern states, northeastern states like Virginia, North Carolina, for example, then the others will complain, and then you pay a bigger political penalty. And especially in the early stages of the game, I definitely don't recommend that. So you need balance. It's quite easy. Um, so you see their ability and their loyalty. I kind of found out that their loyalty doesn't really seem to have any kind of effect in the game. In the game manual, they say that if you want to change some policy, that it gets easier. They accept it more easily. I've never seen the effect of that. So I kind of ignore that. I only check the abilities and I go for that balance. So I take Benjamin as my war secretary. He was at the Confederacy had many different war secretaries, but here he has the most ability. This guy was the Secretary of War only briefly. He took the fall for the loss of New Orleans early in the war, sometime 1862, I think somewhere May 1862, early in the war. Very big loss. There's a book about that. The night the war was lost. So, book that claims that actually it was a fatal blow. It wasn't really his fault, but he was super loyal to Confederate President Jefferson Davis, and to protect Jefferson Davis, I guess he took the fall, and he became the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, so Secretary of State, and he was quite okay. He was very smart man, an expert at maritime law. And after the war, he moved to England, and he was Jewish, and he managed to, after the fall of Richmond, he eventually moved to England and was very successful there. I'm taking Slidell as my Secretary of State. I'm taking Mallory as my Secretary of the Navy. So these two are historical. This is not historical. Well, the guy existed, of course, but he he uh, he was, let's say, an envoy of the Confederacy, but he wasn't a Secretary of State. Then I've noticed that the Attorney General doesn't do much. So I'm assigning Hunter. Sometimes I assign Bell. Sometimes I assign Breckinridge, who has a surprisingly low ability. I don't really agree there that it's so low. He was actually the last Secretary of War for a few months, and he actually improved certain things. This was the Secretary of the Treasury, but I found out that the Secretary of the Treasury doesn't have much of an impact, and the finances of the Confederacy are a mess no matter what you do, unless you get recognized by England and France, who then give you loans, and that stabilizes your economy or your financial situation at least. And the Secretary of the Treasury doesn't have much of an impact there. So I give that to Bell. Doesn't make much of a difference. And I will use Meminger as my envoy to England or France later in the game. So that leaves us with state, war, navy, treasury, attorney. So we can go, and if I remember correctly, because I haven't played this game in a while, there will be no complaint. No, there will no complaint. So now the Union does its thing. This is not historical because this guy should be the Secretary of War, and this one should be the Secretary of the Navy, for example. So this is random, I think. Let me continue. So now you have to select some policy. So there's a prompt. It says there's unrest in the borders states, and we should fan the flames and make sure that more states secede, because at this point only 7 states have seceded from the Union, and of course you want more states to secede. Historically, 11 states seceded. Confederacy claimed that 2 other ones seceded, Kentucky and Maryland, they also added Missouri, so border states. That's why there are 13 stars on the Confederate flag instead of 11, but only 11 are counted as having really seceded. So this goes really well if you do it. It's super easy. There's only one strange thing. So uh, historically, those states secede after the fall of Fort Sumter in Charleston. And as you will see in a few minutes, the Confederacy doesn't control Charleston at this moment. So in the game, these states are going to secede before the fall of Fort Sumter, which is not historical because after Sumter falls, Lincoln calls for 75,000 volunteers. And in reaction to also from the border states, and as a reaction to that, 4 of them secede. Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Arkansas. Tennessee was last, or no, North Carolina was last. So this is then not historical because there's at this point they should actually control Charleston, or this battle for Fort Sumter should happen a bit later, and then this part should then follow. But okay, that doesn't really matter. So we're going to choose precipitate uprising. So that's the most you can do. Like encourage them to rise up. You need a lot of support for that. If you try to make them rise up and they don't really support you, their support for the enemy goes up, and in the worst case, the support they have for you drops even more. So here we see encourage resistance. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not a good option. Don't do that. No, no. discourage. So, I mean, in these areas, in these very pro-union areas, I discourage the activity of my agents to, let's say, foment dissent. Like here, in certain areas, support for the or sympathy for the Confederacy is quite high, but it's not high enough compared to this to try anything there. Like it always backfires if you try that. And maybe good to know is this organized subversion. I never use it. It's never a good option. Never, ever. Don't use it. This when support for you is low, and this when support of you is very high. And if it's like 50-50, you could try encourage resistance, but I would have to really go into the details to tell you when exactly that would be the right time. I don't want to hear the music because it's awful. Every time a state secedes or there's a battle, you get some song and it's awful. So four states are going to secede now. Oh, takes a while. So you see, the Union still controls Charleston, and North Carolina is already seceding. This makes no sense. Historically, this is very odd. So there are some riots in Washington and in the valley, in the Shenandoah Valley, but I don't get control of those areas. Tennessee has seceded. Um, Kentucky will always declare its neutrality, and that's historical. So, Arkansas. Well, no, Arkansas we just had where. So you see, support for the union drops a little bit because there's quite a lot of support, but there's more support for the union, and I discouraged activity. And then the union, the AI, took a very bad option that I never, ever select is the censorship. And because I discourage things, it's like overkill on their side, and it angers people. So there's some logic to it. It's quite clever, but it's never good to use censorship in real life or in this game. So, yeah, finances, like as I said, historically, the Confederates didn't want to pay taxes. I think those states that made up the Confederacy kept that reflex. So I will ask for it, but they will definitely reject. I'm going to do it. So you see what happens. You do not pay a political price for this if they reject this. There's something you do pay a political price for if you request it and you don't get it. But here, there's no risk. Nothing happens. They will just reject it. And now I'm going to uh, do Biden's nightmare. I'm going to create inflation, but I have to because right now it's the only thing I can do to get money. So I'm raising the bond interest to the maximum. Uh, Frankly, this doesn't really matter. Your population can lose hope little bit if your finances go completely haywire, but that will happen anyway. And at the end of the game, if you had a high bond interest, you lose some points. Like it calculates your victory points, and if you did this, then you lose some points. But you also lose some points for inflation, and to kind of keep it a little bit lower, you do need some income. So it's messed up. So it doesn't matter. You see, so reports that your administration's request to levy moderate taxes has been defeated in Congress. So the Confederates, it's hard to raise your taxes. There's nothing you can do about it. You just have to wait as the war goes on. Eventually, they will agree. So what the U.S. does, I don't really care, but they asked for crisis taxes, but they got low taxes, and the interest, the bonds, they kept it very low. Apparently, no, it doesn't matter. Like this doesn't really affect the game. It doesn't matter. So here, they ask you if you want to violate Kentucky's neutrality. If you do, it automatically chooses the Union side. So always say no. unless for some reason you want to have it harder, which sometimes if I get bored, I will say yes, but almost never. And then Kentucky automatically joins the union in its entirety. So I say no. So it asks if I wanted to recruit there. So no. This is too early to change. So it's now you will get the lowest number of recruits because we're only calling for volunteers. But if you ask to mobilize militia or anything else, especially if you want to recruit blacks, um, it's gonna say no, or the politicians will say no, and you pay a political price for that. And it's not worth it. Completely pointless to do that. Here, supplies. I spend everything I can. So here you can see how much money I'm spending, and I'm already going way into minus. So I'm a real American president. I overspend up. Ta, ta, ta. Well, I'm not Bill Clinton because I think he really tried to balance the budget and to lower the national debts. Um, so right now I can't build ships, but that will change. And this especially affects how much railroads you get, and you really need them. So I don't mind overspending. It will cause gigantic inflation, which is historical, by the way. So I always take the maximum. And here you see that the supplies, the maximum supply amount of supplies I can create will not cover the number of recruits I will be having. So I will not have enough supplies for everybody, and that is a problem. But there's stuff you can do to counter that. So I lack 10 supplies. You see, I have 52 troops. So this is 52,000 actually, and I only have 42,000 supplies. Like, it basically means that I don't have enough. And we built some coastal forts and some river forts, and we increased the economy by 5%, which is an insane rate. I don't know if that's even possible historically, but maybe. And the rail capacity by 22. So, and the union does its thing, and because I selected this full intelligence, you get 92,000 troops. And I selected like full intelligence because then I can share more and explain more. But if you play the game often enough, you know this. Like this, it changes a little bit depending on which Secretary of War they selected, but it can go up to 104, so 104,000, and I think it can go as low as 86,000 or something like that if they select Cameron, which is the worst one. But they didn't select Cameron, so you get this. So if you play the game a couple times, you know kind of what is happening, even if you choose to have limited intelligence. Okay, don't need to save. You want to quit? No, I don't want to quit. So now we're going to move troops, but we're not going to commit them to battle. So now we move them. Strategic movement is called, and then later we will send them places to probably attack. Right. So I haven't played this game in a very long time, so I need to think a little bit. Um, I'm gonna move 2,000 troops from Pensacola to Jacksonville. From Jacksonville, I'm going to move them to Savannah. So I don't really need to think about this because I always do the same thing. I do the thing that works best. So I send all these guys to Atlanta, and from Atlanta, I send all of them to Chattanooga. I keep 2,000 troops in Colombia, and they will attack Charleston. I will select Robert E. Lee to do that, and I will explain why. It's not only because he's the best one on the Confederate side. There's another reason. Haven't played this in a long time. I used to know this completely by heart. Now I have to use my intuition. But what I want to do is I want to concentrate as many troops as possible in the west, so not in the east. Historically, the capital of the Confederacy was in Richmond, but at this moment, the game is quite good because it's not in Richmond right now. It's still in Montgomery, Alabama, and later we will be able to move it. And I'm not gonna put it in Richmond. That's a luxury I have. You see, I'm rusty because I'm doing things without actually having an effect. Okay, now I really need to think a little bit. I think I can send all of them except for 4,000, and you can put 4,000 troops without supplies, and nobody will die. So also these 2,000, they don't have supplies. That's not gonna affect them. They will be there. You can do that with up to 4,000 troops. If you do that with 6,000, you lose to 2,000. If you do that with 8,000, you might lose the half of them. So don't do that. So our rail capacity is limited, and as I said, I want to concentrate them all in the middle, actually in Memphis. So I have to be careful that I don't run out of rail capacity, because if I run out of rail capacity, I can't move them anymore, and I also can't get supplies to them anymore. Um, but I think it will be fine. If I remember correctly, right now I have enough rail capacity. I don't need to be too careful. So like this, and you can use rivers, and that doesn't cost you anything. Like you don't need credits or river credit for that. You just need connections. The Confederacy can only move supplies like that, and it can't it can't move troops. The Union can, if it has river connections between two cities, it can move both troops and supplies. But the Confederacy is hamstrung in many ways. So it's more challenging to play it with the Confederates because they have certain disadvantages. But if you know what to do, it's actually quite easy. So just moving all these supplies, like I will show it. So this is going by river. You have to know where the river connections are. It's kind of indicated. So you can for example, use river movements between Corinth and Memphis, but you can't use it between Corinth and I think it's pronounced Decatur. Um, right? So from Chattanooga to Memphis, and now we have to check how many supplies we have because we're going to need them. So so these 2,000, they can be without supplies. They won't die, or they won't desert. They can handle it. They will find supplies in the area. You pay some money for that, but as I said, you can completely ignore that. Your finances are a complete mess anyway. Can't do anything with these because they have no connection. They only have a connection to St. Louis. So from Springfield, I can't take supplies because there's no connection there. And of course, this, as everybody will have understood, not every city in the US is on this map. They selected some important ones, and you're basically moving from the area of Chattanooga, not like only from Chattanooga, but it's this area, and they selected an important city there, and named it Chattanooga. They could have picked other cities. I think they did quite a good job at selecting some of the most important cities. So from Chattanooga to Memphis, and let's quickly calculate how much can we send. So you need to constantly like make these small calculations. So that's 34 and that's 36. So I can concentrate 36 troops there. So that's 18. Gonna send 18. and those 2,000 they don't need supplies. I also have river forts, but at this point in the game they actually don't really matter. And but just to show you that they are a factor, I will tell you where they are and move them. So the river forts are in Memphis as well, but it doesn't matter because I kind of know what the AI will try to do. So from Memphis to Little Rock, it makes the most sense to have them there. But even without them, nothing would happen. So in the on the Confederate side, these river defenses that I suppose they represent uh, ships. They can only be used in a defensive role. They're quite okay, but only in a defensive role. And the Union can use their river forces also offensively, which I think is quite historically accurate. The Union, for most of the war, definitely dominated on the rivers. There, what's it called? You have Blue Water Navy and the other things. Oh, forgot. Sorry. So on the rivers, the Union dominates. So we have 38 rail points left, and we don't need them. So that's it. So why it's so important to match troops and supplies? If, for example, even 2 supplies would be missing here, this would be 34. You can expect massive attrition, and the less you have for them, the more attrition you get. And even now, we're going to lose some. I hope not too many. I suppose it's kind of random. But if you there's a whole calculation behind it. But if you manage to give them all the supplies they need, you don't need to send more. That does nothing. I could send 200 there, and there would be no difference. The only difference is if you don't send enough. So now we're going to lose some people, but only in that area where we have 36,000. All the rest, nobody will go home, and nobody will die of smallpox. So we will see. Now the Union does the same thing. So it's calculating. I don't know if this is real or to give you the feeling that your opponent is thinking. I don't know that much about AI. So when it's done, so only the summary. So you will see we will have lost some people in Memphis. We lost 4,000 in Memphis. That's definitely Memphis. So now the Secretary of War told us that they are too inexperienced to move. That all commanders are complaining that they are not going to move probably. So I want them to move from Memphis to Paducah. That violates Kentucky's neutrality, and Kentucky will join the Union. But that has no effect. Like it's like for me, like give me a thrill if Kentucky secedes, because there's like it's something that could have happened historically but didn't. But for the game, it doesn't really matter. You lose a little bit of support, but it's negligible. It doesn't matter. It's much more important to control Paducah, so it's totally worth it. They tried to do this historically, but later than early 1861, and they didn't send 32,000 troops. So if you're going to do this, better do it in a way that you are never driven out of Kentucky again. So we're going to use PGT Beauregard to take Paducah. So moving from Memphis to Paducah, and taking all of them, and Beauregard is going to do that. Here you see prestige. That is how much prestige the population probably only the white population of the Confederacy has for a particular general. And if you don't give the biggest armies to number one, two, and three, you pay a political price, and that can be heavy. So in general, you need to respect that, and that can get problematic because some of them are terrible, and if they and it can happen, it can easily happen that they get the most prestige. So then you have to assign the worst general, and give them or him your best army. That can happen. I mean, there are many things you can do to avoid it, and you can also choose not to do it and pay the political price. Like in a critical situation, sometimes you just can't appoint the one with the most prestige. In when you play with the union, you play the union sides, it's the first five, and there are really horrible generals there, and you have to appoint them then because otherwise you pay those political always you pay that political price. It's historical. The armies were very highly politicized, and um, political favors were like paid in assignments. So, for example, here Butler and Banks on the Confederate side, you see Leonidas Polk that has nothing to do with politics. Jefferson Davis had a lot of admiration for the guy, and Jefferson Davis was somebody with a lot of loyalty towards his friends, and he gave this guy like way too much responsibility. He was a bishop actually. He went to West Point. He had gone to West Point, but then later decided to be, I think, as I don't want to say Presbyterian. I don't think so. Episcopal. I don't know all these denominations. I'm not a Protestant. He was some Protestant bishop, Episcopalian, I think, but I'm not completely sure. Called him the fighting bishop, but he totally messed up. He's the one responsible for moving into Kentucky and then losing it. Like I said, if you are going to move into Kentucky, then better keep it. I can tell you something about all these generals, but I'm not going to do it right now. So, Pierre Touton de Beauregard, he was a general from Louisiana, spoke French, couldn't dye his hair anymore because of the blockade. And before the war, he had completely black hair. During the war, he became gray because he couldn't get those hair dyes anymore. So he has the prestige of three. These three first ones, I don't have to give him the biggest one. Like I have to give him one of the three biggest ones. So I'm allowed to give him the biggest army, even though his prestige is only three. And 1 and 2 will not be offended by that. And Beauregard is better than Johnston, Albert Sidney Johnston, and Joseph Eggleston Johnston. So that's why I'm selecting Beauregard for this mission. Sometimes he moves, sometimes he doesn't move. So if he doesn't move, okay, I prefer that he moves, but he doesn't always move. Sorry, you see, I'm rusty. I'm gonna send only 30,000 because with 2,000 I wanna try to get to Louisville. So I need to recall Beauregard. Sorry for that. So I'm recalling Beauregard. I'm sending him around 30,000. So even if the Union sends troops to Paducah, he outmatches them and he will win, but they won't. So, like, they won't move into Paducah. If he moves, he just takes it. Louisville is a little bit different. From Louisville, I take these 2,000 guys, and I send them. I take Jackson. He has high initiative, and these troops are very inexperienced. And the higher the initiative of the general, the bigger the chance that he actually moves. So Jackson has initiative of 9 out of 10, and John Bell Hood here has an initiative of 10, but I sent him in the wrong direction. So from Chattanooga to Louisville. So a real fighter, but a little bit too aggressive historically. But here he may serve our purpose if he moves in Louisville, and I know that the Union won't. So that's why I can hope to take Louisville with only 2,000 because the Union is not going to move there. Norfolk, here there will be an uprising, and that uprising is usually successful. Not always, but it's usually successful. So I'm gonna let the rebels, like some automatic uprising will be there. So and I could actually be unlucky, send guys there, and then the uprising doesn't happen, and the uprising is better. So more guys rise up, then I can send, and they won't they wouldn't go there anyway. So from Richmond, I sent them to North Virginia, and I take Joseph E. Johnston. Doesn't matter at all. Why are there almost no troops in Washington? There's a historical reason for that. At the start of the game, the railroad connections to Washington are blocked by rioters. This is historical, and they can't get there by train right now. Well, historically, it didn't take that long, but it did cause some disruptions. These rioters blocking it happened in Maryland, and so Washington was for some time very isolated. So from Colombia, I could actually do the same here and do nothing, and there would be an uprising, and I would probably get Charleston like that. But for very specific reasons, I sent Robert E. Lee. He will most likely move. I think he has an initiative of 8, which is quite high. And if he wins that battle, his prestige goes up. He moves into the top 3, and I can assign one of the biggest armies to him. And he's our top guy or one of our top guys. And if he wins this battle, he goes into the top 3, and then we can use him for bigger assignments because we didn't leave any troops here. No. So it's also important that you give all of them an assignment, or at least you skip only the ones with the lowest prestige, because otherwise they also complain. So I'm sending Edmund Kirby Smith. He's not gonna move. And from here, I use Polk, who's awful. And from Little Rock, I send Albert Sidney Johnston. The guy died very early in the war, probably hit by his own men by accident, and or not, but he bled to death. A tourniquet could have stopped the bleeding, but I think he gave it away to take care of a wounded Union soldier, and dropped from his horse and said, I believe I'm quite heavily or quite seriously wounded, and he was right. I believe he was one of the highest ranking generals to die in the war. Also, Jackson dies in the war, but you get to keep them. Like no matter what happens, these guys don't die. So historically, it's kind of strange. You could be playing the game into 1865 or even later, and Jackson and Albert Sidney Johnston, you can keep using them. Strange. The Union can also attack you via coastal invasion, but in the first round they don't have enough transports to do that. And I don't want to have to redo this video, so I'm gonna check if I did everything I wanted to do. Yes, and yes. So let's see. Let's see. There will be 1 or 2 battles, maybe 3, but That's highly unlikely. And I think they do this for purposes, for suspense purposes. Maybe the AI could do this in 1 second, and it would make a difference. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it does need time to calculate. So you will see an uprising in Norfolk. Lee will attack Charleston, so he moves. I select conquer. I really want it. So up he wins. You see, the prestige of R.E. Lee increased by 2% since his victory in Charleston. This is completely not historical. It was PGT border guards who was in charge there. They controlled Charleston. They didn't control a small force in the harbor of Charleston, and that happened before those four states seceded. So Lee was from a state that hadn't seceded yet. So this makes no sense, but okay. So there would be this uprising in Norfolk. Yeah, you see, 8,000. So that's double the number I could have potentially sent. 8,000 sympathize their rise up. Why do they do that? Because the North has only a very small army there, and there's a lot of sympathy for the Confederacy. So then they rise up. If there would be more Union troops there, it wouldn't have happened. Beauregard moved and he captures Paducah. And I like this. This doesn't always happen. Hoods moves and takes Louisville. And Jackson doesn't move, but that doesn't matter. The Union didn't do anything there, so we control Kentucky now immediately, almost right out of the gate. Here they bicker over who should be in command. That's again based on that prestige thing. So I didn't want to pay any political price. So I let the one with the highest prestige be in charge. It doesn't matter anyway. So the Union did some moves. So because of what happened, loyalty to the USA has changed by -1. That's because we won a battle in Charleston. Our loyalty stays the same. Here, the Secretary of State urges you to coerce Europe and not send them cotton. This is historical. The Confederacy boycotted, organized a cotton boycott, didn't help them. Doesn't help you in this game either. So what I do is I'm very modest. I ask for covert help. I do not threaten anybody. I only entice. And here the same. I entice. And here it matters that you have to send competent people. And here I sometimes don't even mind that they complain that it's not balanced. So I send Meminger to England. This is not historical. And I send Mason to France. And this totally doesn't matter because we don't want peace. So Breckinridge can go there. So in the game, he's very incompetent. I don't know why they did that. I don't think he was that incompetent. I could tell you a little bit more about him. There's even a movie about one of his victories, Field of Lost Shoes. But I don't want to make this too long, so we won't go into that. Did we do everything? I think so. So they complain. Leaders of the radical, you revise them. No, I don't care. Uh, so I will pay some price for that, but it's tiny. It's much more important to have the best ones as your diplomats. So the Union wants to make peace on the basis of reconciliation and not reconstruction. So they want to be lenient now, but we are not going to accept peace. Of course, we want to win. So we get covert aid, so England and France will support us a little bit, but only a little bit, like they did historically. So here you can see, well, yeah, so you see it goes from 9 to 8, and that's because I upset the radicals. So really, this is nothing. It could, at the end of the game, it could matter for victory points, but right now it doesn't really matter. So continue. No, no, no. So now there are like they don't expect any uprisings, so then it's best to discourage activity. Here we control everything, so we don't need to discourage anything. So respect civil rights. I always try to respect civil rights because it angers people if you don't. There are certain situations where it makes sense to suspend the writ of habeas corpus, and sometimes it even makes sense to have martial law. But in all these things where you have four options, it seems there's always one option you should never do, and that is wait, I'll show you. Impulse censorship. Don't do that. So here, never organize subversion ever. Don't do that. It's pointless. I've never seen any good come out of it. Discourage activity. Discourage activity. Discourage activity. So it seems here the extremes are best. Either don't do anything at all, or like cry out for an uprising. We did everything. This kind of matters because if you have the wrong policies here, you could lose a lot of support. Like imagine that I declare martial law in the areas I control right now, where and support is so high for the Confederacy, it would drop by a lot, and it affects your morale, the morale of your soldiers, and how many show up, how many you can recruit. So be careful. Like the option I select most often is to respect their rights. Yeah, so now we get the chance to select a new capital, and I want to do that. The capital, the city you select, becomes a little bit more loyal to you because they're so glad that you selected them. So if I want to keep this as historical as possible, I should select Richmond, but I'm going to use this as some kind of buffer zone. I'm going to retreat here probably, and I don't want Richmond to fall as my capital. I don't care if it falls and it's not my capital. I'm not moving it to Richmond. So I have that luxury to do that because there were many reasons why you should put your they should put their capital in Richmond. I'm not going to do that. This is actually a sort of vipers nest of anti-Confederate sentiments, but I'm actually going to select it. It boosts a loyalty there, and it's very low there. It's not low in almost any of the other cities. And so I boost loyalty there, and it's not a bad location. It has a river connection. Richmond does not, and it's kind of, well, the Union can't get there that easily. It's kind of a risk. I wouldn't do this if you are new to this game. Then Atlanta is maybe better, like to to make sure it doesn't fall. Because if your capital falls, that there are really lots of consequences for your morale. And morale is really critical in this game. So I select Chattanooga, and they're happy about that. Lots of enthusiasm, yay! Um, I can't adjust it; they will reject it. So I'm of course spending way too much, and I should get some financial balance here, but nothing is gonna happen there. Poof, no. And you see, this will get way worse. Oof, boom, inflation. Doesn't really affect the game. So here they told us how many supplies got through the blockade, because the Confederacy can't produce that much. You need those supplies. We lost all our cruisers. They attack northern shipping, and this you can't control. This is totally random. And so the US lost a little bit of merchant vessels. It doesn't affect the game that much. It doesn't matter. So we want river bolts or river forts. We want coastal forts the maximum. Here you can choose if you want more blockade runners or more cruisers. We're gonna go for more cruisers. This I do more for fun because if without cruisers, that aspect that the Confederacy attacks merchant ships is gone. I could also build domestic blockade runners, and then England and France, for some reason, also build more of them. If you have a lot of these, the North is forced to build ships to go hunt those cruisers, and then they can't build so many ships to blockade you. So, but really, this I do kind of for fun. It might even be better to do this. But I like it. It's fun. It's fun to see if we hurt their merchant fleet. So 5 maximum. So lose too much time. And now I will ask to mobilize militia, and this is not encouraging, but usually it's accepted. If it's rejected, you pay a political price. So that's it. This looks really low, but it was accepted. So we will have more troops. So we get 90,000 this time without mobilization. I think it would be maybe 60,000 something, maybe 70,000 maximum. No, probably only somewhere in the 60,000. So not important. So I'm gonna speed up certain things. No. So now again, I need to move all my troops. So supplies from Pensacola to Jacksonville. So I'm gonna quickly go through this. Basically, I want to send as many troops and supplies up north, to be very aggressive in the west, and initially we're going to lay low in the east, and we can afford to do that because our capital is not in Richmond. So if we lose that area, it doesn't really matter. The point in this game is that if you lose an area, make sure that you don't lose it because of a battle. Don't lose battles. You can give up areas. You don't pay a political price for that. Well, the area is lost, which is not good. But it doesn't affect morale immediately. Losing a battle is really bad. Right. So here I don't really care. So you know about that trick that 4,000 guys can be without supplies all the time. So we do that. We want all those supplies, and we want to send them west, where the biggest concentration of troops will be. It's very critical. So also Greensboro will have to give up their 8,000 supplies. I want all those supplies to go west. So historically, this would be kind of hard to defend. Richmond would have complained. They would have petitioned the president, like, "What the hell are you doing? You are basically sacrificing us to the Yankees." So now I'm not going to reinforce Paducah, which is strange, but there's a reason for that. The troops in Paducah now have some experience, so they are more likely to move. If I add troops to them who are inexperienced, then they become again less likely to move, because if you add inexperienced troops to experienced troops, the overall experience rating drops, and then they are less likely to move. And I want them to move. You'll see. So I hope they will move. So those 28,000 guys, they have 28,000 in food and everything they need. What I did is risky because I stripped so many troops of the coastal areas that there's a chance they capture Jacksonville, for example. But that's a risk I'm willing to take. I'm to redo that. So running to Memphis. So no more rail capacity. So now I can only use my river capacity. I'm going to leave 2,000 river troops in New Orleans because I've stripped all troops away. I think that's what they should have done historically. From the coastal areas. Well, I'm being unfair because they did, kinda. That's why New Orleans fell. But if you do that, you need to use the troops you strip away from the coastal areas very effectively, so the Union can't afford to send troops overseas. They need them. They need them to defend their own cities. That's what we're going to try and accomplish. Riverine, Riverine, Riverine. Is there more supply? Yeah, of course. Well, all that supply needs to go up north. Uh, this is annoying because I have to do this manually. I can't select all, I think, because I can't move troops via water. No. So you see, I need to do it like this. And it's really strange to be playing a game and commenting on it while I know that there are wars raging, real wars, not video game wars, in a neighboring country, by the way, in Ukraine. 36, so then 32 there. I think I made a tiny mistake. Yeah, so these don't have enough supplies, and these don't have enough supplies, and I can't send anything by river there, if I remember correctly. There's no connection between Memphis, no, and Louisville, no. But I can't afford to put 22,000 guys without enough supplies, so I'm gonna take 4,000 supplies from Little Rock. So I will lose some troops in Little Rock, but not that many. And then these riverine troops, I want them all in Paducah because I'm gonna um, send the army in Paducah to capture Evansville. And they might move, and then there are not that many troops in Paducah, and I could lose Paducah. So I need those river troops to defend Paducah. So could have done a slightly bit better job here. I think I could have um, made sure that almost all my troops would have supplies, but it's not dramatic. And the most important thing is that we have these large troop concentrations in Paducah here in the middle. But the rest you will see. So it's the Union's turn. Uh, move their armies I don't think we will be seeing anything surprising. They will send a small naval expedition, and they will have a lot more troops in the eastern border. Need to wait a bit. So historically, mid 1861, this is a very interesting situation for the Confederacy because we control Kentucky and we control our entire coastline. So more troops will go into the eastern border, Union troops, and there we won't be able to do much except retreat. See, that's a small naval expedition. Okay, so now we will lose more troops than during the last round because some didn't have supplies and there were larger concentrations, so we lost 16,000. Uh, not that bad. So again, they are inexperienced. We get a warning that they might not move. So now we can send those 32,000 to Louisville, and they are experienced. They have 3 experience, which is not much. But technically, Lee should move, but he might not. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. And I would love for him to move to Evansville because then you control the river and I can supply Louisville much more easily. From Memphis to Paducah, I send Aubrey Johnston. From Chattanooga to Louisville, I send um, Joseph Eggleston Johnston because they're still in the top 3. Beauregard is out of it, so from Louisville, I moved to Cincinnati, and I pick Polk, who has very low initiative. He has the lowest initiative on the Confederate side, so I don't actually want him to move. I want the computer to think that I want to move there. The computer reacts to. The computer knows what you are doing, so he calculates that you're trying to move there, and somehow doesn't calculate how likely it is that you actually get there. Because I'm using Polk, so it's very unlikely to move there. And this then doesn't really matter. I don't want to do a battle in Northern Virginia. They can have Northern Virginia. We can stall for time there a little bit without incurring real losses, real defeats. So 4,000 are going to move to Pensacola, and Jackson will win that, and his prestige will go up. He won't get into the top 3, but it will boost him a little bit. So here we can use Bragg. Here we can use. No, I'm gonna run out of generals like this. Who did I use here? Nobody. So from Charleston, I will move Beauregard. Here, Springfield to St. Louis. I'll use not Hood because he would actually move there, and I don't want them to move because they would lose. So E.K. Smith is unlikely to move, and Bragg is unlikely to move, but they might. If they do, it's no biggie, but I would prefer for them not to move. Just give that impression that they might move. Hood is moving from Cornwall to Memphis. So I want them up north, and if they move there on foot, as they're doing now, I don't need to use my limited rail capacity later. So what I'm basically doing is making this uh, theater very low intensity, very low effort, and the Union is concentrating way more troops there than I have. So that means I can match them here because they have trouble transferring that many men out west. So that's that's basically what I'm doing. Creating areas where I can overpower them and giving up some areas, but without political costs. Historically, that would have been much harder because if they hadn't put their capital in Richmond, maybe they would have lost more support in Virginia politically. But here in this game, it doesn't really, it gives you the option to really put it anywhere. So right, put it in Chattanooga. Right, so Jackson is going to win that there. Prestige up by 2. No, we lose Northern Virginia. Who cares? I don't care because there's no battle, so it doesn't affect morale. Did Lee move? We will soon find out. But they don't move. They don't move. That's good because if they had moved, they would have lost. Does Lee move? Lee moves. Hopefully he wins because they have also quite a lot of troops there. Should Polk replace him? No. Okay, let's see if Lee wins. And Lee wins. So he defeats an enemy that's slightly outnumbered. Doesn't lose that many, 8,000 to 8,000. And Grant also not that historical, but okay, Lee and Grant never had the same number of troops, and they didn't fight each other out west either, by the way. So also not historical. So far things are going really well for the South. Not changing anything. I don't care. This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. They stay at covert 8. That's good. So we are going up 6 to 8, 9 to 9 is fine. 8 to 9 up. Our armies are getting bigger. Like there's still a difference between north and south. The north still outnumber us, but not by that much. Inflation, you see, inflation is still too low. But let's speed up. Right, so in the areas where we really have a lot more support, we do this precipitate an uprising, and here, strangely, we're also going to do that because we have a lot of support now in Cincinnati, and I would like them to rise up there. But we won't get to control. There will be no more seceding. We won't see that anymore. That can only happen if there are no troops in an area and they prefer to be with the other side. But there are troops everywhere now, so there won't be any more seceding. Okay, this is boring. This doesn't matter. Nothing major is gonna happen now. There will be some uprisings, but they don't really affect the game that much. Best case scenario is we see uprisings in Cincinnati or Fort Wayne as well. Our rating dropped a point there, but those riots could make sure that they can't recruit there, and that would be helpful. And I think in this round they will still be able to recruit. So now Lincoln is doing something about slavery. He's not going to abolish slavery. He recognizes it de facto. So some slaves will be free, and that boosts morale a little bit here, but morale for the Union drops. You might think that, oh, this is really great, how stupid of Lincoln, but it helps to prevent that England and France recognize you, and that's a big deal. So if he doesn't do that, it's easier to get recognized by England and France, and then you have a lot of advantages as a Confederate player. So we got to keep two cruisers, our blockade runners, the number has increased. We keep spending like there's no tomorrow. Uh, we're not going to go to limited draft because we would pay a political price. And even if they would approve it, we would have too many mouths to feed, so we don't want to do that. We also don't have the rail capacity to successfully transfer that many troops. So there was a lot of enthusiasm on both sides for the war, and this is reflected in this one-time super high number. So the number on the Union side will also be high, but lower than ours, because we've already managed to damage their morale a little bit, and we took over Kentucky and Evansville. So you see, we got slightly more, but we will be attacking so much that to break their morale and capture cities, that we won't outnumber them so easily, because in those aggressive battles we will lose more troops than they. Right. So now we have so many troops and very little rail capacity. It doesn't grow that much, so we won't be able to send all troops up north. Um, I'm not even gonna start there. I'm gonna start here. I don't want to use too much rail connection to get everybody fed. So what I'm gonna do here is know that 4,000 won't starve. So making that system this. Don't like to do this. This is spending a lot of rail in the east, and the east we've declared some sort of strategic backward water that we don't really care about, but we also don't want to starve them. So I would, if the West needs supplies and they can't get them there, I would prefer to lose troops in the East. Like I said, that's my trick to win this quite quickly or easily. So from Chattanooga to Decatur, I think that's how you pronounce it. Need to think how many troops I can sustain in the field up north. But I actually think quite a lot of them, so I send everything. If needs be, like I said, I will steal supplies in the east and give them to the west. Let's go up north, and I don't really have the rail capacity to strip the coast so much. I will try. If I do, if it turns out I do have enough, I'm definitely gonna try that. So all those go up. And now we get to take all of the supplies from down south. So again, those 4,000, they won't starve. New Orleans to Jackson. This is how I make up for lack of supplies. I have four groups of 4,000 in cities, and it doesn't matter that they don't have supplies. So I can send those to the bigger armies where it definitely does matter. With 4,000 you can do that. If you do that with 6,000, you lose 2,000 or more. So with more than 4,000, I don't like to do it. You can also give 6,000, 4,000 supplies and nothing will happen. Sometimes I also do that. These can go north, and the remaining, if we have some rail capacity left, we will use that down south in Florida and Georgia and South Carolina, which is not under serious threats. They will try to attack there with naval expedition again. But also coastal force defense against that kind of threat. A lot of supplies here now. To Evansville. The most experienced ones now. So Paducah can be defended by all the river troops we have. So that gives a lot of movement to the ones in Paducah, because we don't need to stay there. We need 34 there. We have 4 more. We're going to take them from here. What I'm going to do now is use the remaining rail capacity to move not troops but supplies up as many as possible for the next turn, actually, not for this turn. Send everything, that's awesome. We also sent 8,000. 8,000 with supplies. Nobody will starve. That's the maximum troops you can have in one area without losing anybody to attrition, if they have supplies. So 8,000 in one area, and they have 8,000 supplies. Nothing will happen to them. Starting with 10,000, even if they do have all supplies, you will lose them. In the case of 10,000, you will lose 2,000, even if you supply them. You fully supply them. Memphis to Paducah. So large troop concentrations, even if you do supply them fully, you always lose a lot of them or some of them, and sometimes you lose a lot, sometimes not that many. Well, it's really not looking all that badly. So we let the Union do its thing, and then we are going to do some more damage, hopefully. The more victories we win, the more their morale slips. And the more their morale slips, the less they're able to recruit new troops, and then you start kind of outnumbering them, and then you can really crush them. So it's about morale and controlling areas, but you need to know which areas to give up without a fight and which areas to win battles in. So there are those blows to morale. So luckily in this game you don't pay a political price if you lose an area without a battle. It's kind of reflects the historical reality. like losing a battle, and an area could be worse for morale than just giving it up. But I think also just giving it up without a fight would have been politically, let's say, pricey. So who are our top guys? That's important to know. Johnston, and Lee. Because I completely ignore this. I don't care what happened here so much. So if morale drops only in that area, I don't really mind. So it's possible that I cashier one of the Johnstons if I need a better general in one area. They have a competence level of 4, and for example, Lee has 9 for comparison. So sometimes I don't want to use a 4 in an important area. So here I'm again going to make sure that Jackson wins this victory, and then his prestige goes up again. So now he needs, I'm going to use Bragg to reinforce him, and when they unite, Jackson will be in charge. He will most likely win. Actually, he will win with 100% certainty. So we're going to move from Richmond to North Virginia, but we don't actually want that to happen because then we lose. We're going to use Johnston, who will most likely not move, and that is historically extremely accurate. And from Wilmington, sends Edmund Kirby Smith, who historically ended up commanding troops in Trans-Mississippi in Texas. So 6,000 from to Grafton. This is a very inaccessible area, no railroads, no rivers. It's West Virginia. Take me home to West Virginia. We're going to assign Polk, and if this area gets attacked, it's hard to defend, and I don't mind if Polk loses prestige because he's the worst one we have. Now from Louisville, I select Cincinnati, and Lee is gonna try and do that. And from Paducah, here I could opt to send Albert Sidney Johnston, but he's unlikely to move, and he might actually win here. He might actually win if we send somebody that moves. We could use John Bell Hood, and he might move. Nah, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna do something very strange now. I'm going to, from Louisville, I'm going to send John Bell Hood, who is very likely to move. It's not certain, but it's likely, because those troops are inexperienced, but they don't have an experience of 0, they have an experience of 2. And from Evansville, I'm gonna do it a little bit differently. From Evansville, I'm going to send Jackson, like this. I should have put those river troops in Evansville actually. So here we're going to use as Albert Sidney Johnston, and Joseph E. Johnston will complain that he didn't get the best commands, and that would also be super historical. He always complained that the administration, Jefferson Davis, was not giving him uh, important enough assignments. And that's kind of true. I don't want to send Johnston there because then he's gonna complain double. And I don't want him to win a battle because then we don't get rid of him. His prestige would go up again. So I'm gonna send Forrest. And then we are running out of generals. From Little Rock, we move to St. Louis. And who can we send? We use Polk here, so nothing will happen in West Virginia. That can be helped. And we have only 10 generals, so we need to make selections. So this will be Leiden. And we still have Johnston. So let's use Johnston here. If he moves, he loses prestige because he can't win there. And if he doesn't move, that's fine. And if he gets attacked in Springfield and loses, I also don't mind because then he also loses prestige. And him out of the top 3. Or maybe Jefferson Davis was trying to do exactly the same thing I'm doing now, which would almost be like some weird conspiracy against Joseph E. Johnston. So let's see what happens. Like I don't really care what happens on other fronts. What's important to me is that I win in let's say the middle, in the area of Ohio, in Illinois. That's the most important for us. You have rivers there. A lot of a big aspect of this game is also to have enough train capacity. So the more you can use rivers, the more you will take pressure off your railroad system or rail network. And in the east, you don't have rivers. So I forgot about Beauregard. Can Beauregard defend against 14,000? He will get some local recruits. Let's say he can. And I didn't expect Albert Sidney Johnston to move. So he's going to raid. He will lose. We will pay some price for that. But for a raid, you don't pay such a price. So Beauregard managed to hold on to Grafton. Historically, West Virginia was lost very early. So because we're only raiding, they lost only 2,000 and we lost only 8,000. We pay some price for that. What's good about this is that Johnston's prestige went down, so you don't have to give him big assignments anymore, and that's very good. So hopefully all of them move. Good moves. I want Jackson to replace him because he's the better general, and Lee moves, so that's really good. So we got Cairo. He defeated me this time. His nemesis at Gettysburg. Jackson defeated Rosecrans. Rosecrans, not sure how you pronounce it. So we control a lot of areas in the Northwest, which was my goal all along, and we haven't even lost Richmond, even though we funneled a lot of troops into the west. So we retreat to Richmond. You see, they have a lot of troops there, but they also don't have enough rail capacity to send all of them to the front there because you don't have those rivers. We go up by 2, they go down by 3. They urge you to have these cotton uh, boycotts, but never do that. So they're already trying to bribe France and England to stay out of it. In best case scenario would be that they recognize us, but because Lincoln freed some slaves, we're going to need to do more. We will need to win more victories to accomplish that. It happens automatically if you capture Washington, but that's very hard to do. So here's 1-1. For some reason, if I don't take precipitate uprising now, it's good for the North. I don't really know why they do that, but from experience, here we leave them alone, and in the Northwest, we respect their civil rights and we precipitate an uprising. We don't need to change anything else, so we can continue. So not much will happen. There will be some riots in the north, but no areas will be lost because, as I said, there are some troops everywhere. So those uprisings don't lead to any area control. See? This is kind of boring because I know what's gonna happen. Uprisings also work. But yeah, okay, we can try, but it really doesn't matter. Oh, they accepted it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. Um, right, so because we're controlling some areas up north, we can produce a little bit more. We already have 208 blockade runners. Look at our treasury balance. We could try to get limited draft, but I wouldn't do it. So we have enough troops. So let's move on. 110,000. So again, we wouldn't be able to see this if I had selected limited intelligence, but I want to show you what this loss of morale is doing to them. So they've recruited only 50,000. They still have a lot. They still have 362,000. So imagine if their morale stays up, how many troops they are able to raise. Interesting if you want to try and play this game. If you leave no troops in those areas, they fill up with recruits. But if you have some troops there, that doesn't happen because you're not actually recruiting there. They like spontaneously volunteer. But for that to happen, there can be no Confederate troops there. So one of the little tricks in this game. So I have the same system. We try and get some supplies from the east into the west. And that's our most important area. So this time we might actually lose Richmond or Norfolk. I don't really mind. Can we send some supplies? Oh, no. I don't want to bother with this, so I sent 2,000 troops west, so the situation in the east is now okay. And from Atlanta, no, from Atlanta to Chattanooga. I'm trying to get this over done with overrun it as fast as possible. Up, ta, ta, ta. And the same here. So I have certain reflexes to get supplies to the north as quickly as possible and to get some extra ones by leaving 4,000 troops without any here and there. Don't think I will be able to send that many up north. Let me think. Can I do that? Maybe I can. It's going on experience here without actually calculating if I have enough troops, supplies actually, to be doing this. Mm, and then Memphis to Paducah, so we will have a gigantic army there. So we have 72,000 troops in Paducah. That's about as many as Lee had at Gettysburg. It's not the largest army ever controlled. Either army during the 7 Days battles. At Fredericksburg, I think, in December 1862. But 70,000 was a pretty big army at that time. Now I need to be careful because they could actually send a naval expedition to New Orleans, as happened historically, but it won't matter if I leave some river troops there. From Jackson to Corinth, I want to send 70,000 supplies. Of course, the more areas you start controlling, the more supplies you can produce yourself, but you still need help from France and England in most cases. Okay, so I need to send 8,000 to Little Rock, to Arkansas, to Clinton State, Old State. 8,000, here we are in this land, Tennessee, from Paducah to Cairo, that's 30,000. From Paducah, we sent them to Louisville. Something here. Then this time I want to get the river forces in the right location, and I want them in Cincinnati. Lazy, so I should also. There are some left in the south, in Decatur and Little Rock. But it doesn't really make that much of a difference. But if I would want to be super serious about this, I would send them. Or if the situation would be more critical, then from Louisville to Cincinnati. So need to think. Like as I said, if you leave 10,000 guys there, even with supplies, you lose some. So a smart thing to do is to have 4,000 there with 2 from Evansville, where there are also 10,000. Then nobody has to desert. Nobody has to die. From Evansville to Louisville, 2,000. Now nobody will die. So, and 8,000 up. In Charleston they have. So we will, even though we will have enough supplies in Grafton, we will lose some guys there. 2,000 only. I hope not more. Well then, one. And then hopefully we can sort of finish the West, more or less. And then, strangely, by controlling the West, we can actually move into the rear of the eastern border. So even though the troops at Richmond are totally outnumbered, eventually the troops we have in the West will kind of land in the rear of the northern troops in the east. So it's early 1862. Historically, the situation was completely different. They were losing Kentucky, they were losing large parts of West Tennessee, parts of northern Mississippi. They were about to lose New Orleans. Richmond was under pressure. There were small. Um, they're not on the map, but small coastal towns were being captured. It was going a lot worse. But this is a game, of course. I know what the AI is capable of, how it thinks, where it moves, where it doesn't move, uh, what you can do to make it not move because it thinks you're going to move there, how to use these generals in such a way that I'm sending them even though I don't want them to go. They lose 36,000, we lose 32,000. That's a very good ratio. I think they still outnumber us at this point. So we have 10 generals, as you know, and we're going to do the same trick. So we're going to move from Richmond to North Virginia. This sometimes fails, sometimes they do move in your direction, and you get some message that he couldn't move because he's under attack. So, but now we have a luxury problem. So we have some of our best generals are now in our top three, and we would actually like to keep them there. But now I'm gonna have to give one of them probably a bad assignment that's gonna make him lose prestige. I take the weakest one. Beauregard has a ability of 6, which is not that bad, but Jackson has an ability of 7 and Lee has an ability of 9, so I don't want to damage their prestige. And if we lose Norfolk, it's nice if Joseph E. Johnston takes a hit. Um, this actually doesn't reflect my opinion of Joseph E. Johnston historically. I don't think he was that bad. But in the game, I prefer to uh, make sure that he keeps a low prestige. So here we can send Bragg, but then he might move in the top 3 if he wins. So let's select uh, Edmund Kirby Smith. Then we go here. So, so as I said, I would like to finish it. So ideally, we would win here, here, and here, and then these two areas have no more escape route and they are forced to surrender. So let's do that. This is kind of like Hitler moving, destroying pockets in the Ukraine instead of going straight for Moscow, because I could also turn east and try to get to Washington faster. But then I have these guys stuck in my rear, and that's what I don't want. So from Cincinnati to Fort Wayne, and Lee is going to do that. That's I'm gonna give him 8,000 troops in support under John Bell Hoods. I should stop shaking my computer, but right now I don't have a better setup. So from Evansville to Fort Wayne, it's gonna be Hoods, and from Cairo to Chicago, complete overkill can be Forrest, because I want. He's very good. His ability is 8. I'd like to see him. Now we have a problem. Paducah to St. Louis. Only Hoods is going to do that, but I don't want to get into political trouble for giving him too high commands. So Border Guard has 42,000. So that means we can give Hoods 42,000 as well, and nobody can complain then. And from Paducah, I move to. So without this political aspect, I would of course give Hoods all the troops in Paducah, but that's gonna lead to complaints, and I don't like that. I don't like to. How did I forget to give Jackson a command now? Forrest. Okay, so sorry, Forrest. Jackson is gonna do it. And then Lee is not getting those 8,000 because nobody else is gonna move. That is a problem. Johnson. Yo, that's you. From New York. Send me Western. I'm selecting Forest because he will move. I could select Polk, but he probably won't move. I don't want to lose Grafton, but if I do lose Grafton, I want Polk to be in charge. And I think we've used everybody. No. Oh, why is he complaining? Who got more? Yeah, Jackson has 40,000. Okay, so I have to give Hoods 40,000. You see? This you have to go constantly take into consideration. You pay that political price for it, and it's really not worth it. It affects morale, and only in certain cases where I really want the right guy for the job with all the men I can give him for that job, I will take that hit, this political price, this political penalty you have to pay if you don't select that one of those top 3 guys for a big assignment. So let's see. What could go wrong is that attack by Lee, because he doesn't have those 8,000 support troops. I wanted to give him via Hood, but I need Hood to attack St. Louis because that's the only one who might move, since the troops in Paducah have zero experience. Almost only Hood does that. We saw Lee do it, but that's not that common. He does it in the first round, but then later he doesn't always do it. And I should drink more. Smith will win here. There. So it's 8,000 to 2 against 14,000, but they have coastal force there. So those also have to defend. He moves. So there's no way we can win that. So Beauregard will take 8. Polk wins in prestige, which I don't like to see, but okay, we keep Grafton. So let's say he distracted Burnside, but pays the price for it. It's not fair. So Hood wins against Sherman. That's the first. Historically, they fought against each other, of course. Sherman took Atlanta. So Fort Wayne, that could go wrong. They have low morale, and Lee is the best. Oh, they took Cincinnati. Probably missed something. Alright, so pretty decent. There will be some surrenders. Probably misplaced my river troops, did I? Oh. Doesn't really matter because we have those surrenders. Wasn't expecting it. But on all other fronts, things went well. So go back. We knew that. So 26,000 surrender in St. Louis and 40,000 in Chicago. That's more Union troops surrendering in one go than in the entire American Civil War. And then from where they go to -3 again, and we get +2, so that's fantastic. And maybe they will recognize us, maybe. That would be a huge boost. No, they don't. But look, their morale is gone. They always say that there are rumors that they are not doing their job, and you can completely ignore that. It's complete bullshit. You just keep the guys you want to keep. So precipitate uprising because it's 0-0. If you don't do that, it's good for the North. So normally you only do precipitate uprising if you have support, but for some reason, if you have 0-0 in this specific area, you should do precipitate uprising. So and nothing in New England. So in New England, no matter how bad the war goes for the North, they are always able to. That was my phone. They were always able to recruit there, and this is to reflect that people up there they had the most anti-slavery sentiments. I think that's what it is. So no matter how badly it goes, they're always able to recruit troops there, and it's a populous area. So the North always gets some troops, even if they have riots all over the place, including in New England, it doesn't matter. So they have riots in every city they control, and they will still be able to recruit some troops. Again, okay, this time they're not gonna accept it. Well, lots of inflation. A lot of supplies went through. We lost all our cruisers again, but they forced the Union to build ships to catch us. Mhm. So now we could risk that, but we have enough troops, and our logistical situation would get a lot more complicated because we don't have enough supplies. So you would get more troops, but you would also lose more troops to attrition. So it's kind of a zero-sum game, and it gets more complicated to move them around, and you don't gain much at this point. Sometimes I do it if I later in the game when my supply situation really stabilizes. So we're going to do the same thing. So we have a lot more rail capacity now, and we control a lot of rivers. So I'm going to spend some rail capacity here to reinforce the Virginia front, also here. And these are too far away. It's not worth the rail capacity to send supplies from all the way down south. Not worth it. Do this, and we want to get some supplies from the east into the west, which I think we will be able to do this term. So you see already almost no rail left, but we get boom. You see, but better to send these 8,000 guys to Richmond. Because to use them effectively here, you can't rail them from Chattanooga to Louisville. They have to go like this, so you would pay 32. So better, no, 16 instead of 8. So better to just send them to Richmond. But all the other supplies can go west. And then I will start here, and if I need supplies from the deep south, I will do that later. I first want to see if I can supply them without having to look at New Orleans and Mobile and other cities like Jackson. And like I didn't use my river troops effectively. Maybe I'm not paying enough attention to that because I'm talking. Looks good. You see, you're also getting supplies in the areas you capture. Cairo and Evansville on their own already have 14, which is a lot. Like Corinth has 8, Little Rock has 6. Those northern areas produce more supplies, but they produce way more if the north controls them. And something odd is that sometimes they produce really a lot for the south as well. And sometimes I think that's connected to inflation. If your inflation is too high, they don't produce that much, and that gets fixed by being recognized by France and England. But sometimes even with high inflation, they produce a lot. So now they don't produce that much, but also not that little. So sometimes here and there the game still has a few mysteries for me. So, but that defeat in Cincinnati could have been avoided if I had put all my river troops there. Oh no, I'm gonna send. You see, we don't have that much rail capacity, and we need to supply Fort Wayne, and we need to use rail for that because we can't use any river connection. So we need 24 there. Right. So maybe for the first time in the game, we really don't have enough rail capacity for everything I want to do now. As many troops as possible in Fort Wayne, but that's costly. It's actually very costly. So, Cairo, as mentioned before, if I don't want to lose anybody in Evansville, I move 2,000 up to Fort Wayne. I prefer not to send these because these have no experience. And I can send 14 more from Cairo to Fort Wayne. 14. So pretty large force, 54,000 for the south. That's all. And now we need to make sure that St. Louis doesn't completely starve. So it's a pity we don't have more rail capacity because, of course, it would be wonderful to send that many troops up north, but they will have to walk. They will get there. They will eventually commit to battle. It's gonna take some time to get them there. Still acceptable. Nobody will die there. 6,000 and only 2,000 when morale is high. Nobody tends to die there. If you want, I can check as soon as this is done. Nobody died in New Orleans. So this should be sufficient to feed St. Louis. I'm actually super tired. It was a holiday in Slovakia, but I have to teach anyway, not as many classes as I usually teach on a Friday, but still. And we had a birthday party yesterday, and it was super fun, but lots of kids running around takes a toll on you. That's 28, I should add. Okay. Alright, that looks good. So let's move to the next round. The game ends if you control a certain number of cities or in very specific locations. You need to, if you are the Confederate player, you need to control Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Evansville, and Cairo, and then the North immediately gives up. You can also win if Lincoln doesn't win re-election in 1864, but I hope we can win this game faster. and you I think yeah, yeah, that's it. That's how you win. You can also fight to a draw, but then you have to have no clear winner by 1880 or something. Then politicians jump in and say, "Come on, we're done with." And you get some sort of draw. But it only happened once, and I did it on purpose. I controlled the north, and I created situations where the war just went on and on and on. And when I was about to win, I let the south come back, and then if that got too bad, I forced them back down until and I was planning to do that indefinitely. I was bored. I was a teenager, and to my surprise, I get a message that no, this is done. It's been going on for too long, and the people have had enough of it on both sides. But I forgot what exactly the peace terms were. Maybe that they reunited, but slavery was not abolished. And, okay, so my favorite area, my favorite area for victory. I like winning in the East as well because it's more unusual because you need to. It's harder to send many troops there and keep them supplied. So Lee is going to do Cleveland there. Is Hood in the top three? Hood is not in the top three. That's fine. And I can give him small commands with no experience, and he won't be fully in charge there, which is excellent. From Louisville to Cincinnati, and Jackson can do this. Who do we have left then? Getting blind. Johnston, my god, how is that possible? Back in the top three. I think what we will see now is that they will take over Norfolk. They will not defend with all their troops in North Virginia because they don't need to. And unfortunately, they might capture Norfolk. Grafton to also Cincinnati. So against the human player, you would I would play differently because now I know where the AI is gonna send troops and where not. I could explain that. If you the AI never really retreats when you gang up on one location. So probably he's gonna sit tight in Cincinnati and let me attack him with an overwhelming force instead of just clearing the area and reinforcing Pittsburgh. But yeah, it doesn't take long to find out that the AI doesn't do that. If you send sufficient force to an area, it sits tight and defends against what you're sending. So, historically, Bragg did a lot more. I'm trying to avoid using him. I only want the top guys. So that means Jackson, Lee, Beauregard, and Nathan Bedford Forrest. And Hood has a competence level of 4, which is low, but he's willing to move. So that's why he often also ends up some with some high rank because he moves. And if I give him enough troops, he does win. So where did we use spoke? Did we use smooth somewhere? Some brag there. Oh, okay. And we use Albert Sidney Johnston for something. 12,000. Where does he have 12,000? I'm too tired. So let's move on. Won't make much of a difference. So we're of course not going to win in Northern Virginia. We might lose Norfolk, and this time we get all of the West. I think we will maybe lose Grafton, but that's not important. So ideally, it would take one more round or two more rounds to win. Ideally. So, depending on how this goes. Like psychologically, I like to win and be recognized by England and France. In some weird psychological thing I have going on when playing this game. Like there are things that feel like an accomplishment, which includes being recognized by England and France. I know it's kind of strange. Because I know that historically it was important to them to be recognized, and it's fun to achieve that in the game because they didn't achieve it in reality. England and France never formally recognized them. Okay, so those we control the entire northwest now, which is perfect. And our next goals are Pittsburgh and then Philadelphia, and then it's over. If you want to feel like especially accomplished, you can delay your victory by trying to get to Washington first, and then you automatically get recognized. So recognition could happen now, might also not happen, and it doesn't happen. Now we also have to precipitate uprising in New England because it's 0-0 there. If you don't do that, then they can actually jump back to 3, and now they will probably only jump back to 1. Well, this is not really important because I don't expect anything unusual to happen now. Just riots, 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 riots. There were many riots during the American Civil War. Some quite bad. There's a movie, Gangs of New York. It's not really a Civil War movie. It's about a gang war, but at the time of the American Civil War, and the riots that took place there in 1863 play a part in that movie. So, the same as always, maximum, the maximum, the maximum. Build everything you can up, up, use everything you can. And let's move on. Now we could maybe go for a limited draft. Nah, too many troops and not enough rail capacity. So I think now we may be outnumbering them. So they could only recruit way up north, saying only 20,000. So yeah, we outnumber them. But because we don't have the rail capacity to uh, give everybody a ride to the front, don't really outnumber them at the front. Military terms, much shorter supply line. We are, in a way, a little bit overextended. Now I'm considering an offensive in Northern Virginia, but then I really need to beef up what we got there. See? I think we will need more than 100,000 troops if we want to make a dent there. See if we can do this. It will also depend on attrition. We lose all the guys to attrition, and conquering Northern Virginia won't be for this round. So supplies. Indicator to Chattanooga. Alright. Now Chattanooga to Richmond. So first 8 and then the rest. We're going to need 12 more. And that probably won't be enough to capture Northern Virginia. At least we tie them in place there, and they will definitely not be able to get Richmond. But usually, because of this trick that if you attack them, they sit tight. Unless you attack them with such a small force that they counter. Like if I would leave only 10,000 troops in Richmond, they would definitely take Richmond. The AI would definitely do that. So again, not that much rail capacity, and that is annoying. Like you will see how few troops we can now rail in from the deep south, almost none. So in that sense, this draft starts to make sense, because then you also recruit more in the areas close to the front, and you don't need to rail them in because they're recruited there. So we're still getting some from Memphis to the front. That's not bad. But fortunately, we also need to keep them supplied. I'd like to take Grafton back. So we're gonna need quite a lot of supply in this area. So to make things easier for us, we send supplies from Cincinnati to Cleveland. 14. 70,000 and 28,000. We can send supplies from Charleston, all 14, because 4,000 never starve or desert or die of disease in one area. Another 28. 28 can be had down south. Normally I wouldn't do this, but I'm gonna put them entirely without supplies to some time. To make this part less boring, because this is just moving around supplies and by now we know how it works. Little rock is enough. Tempest. So I'm using the rivers, that's the big advantage here. That's why early on it's much easier to send troops into the west, because you can use those rivers. And there are none in the east. There's not a single river you can use for supply, which historically doesn't really make that much sense. Grant used James River to supply his army later in the war, so there are rivers there. There are, of course, rivers on the east coast, or in the east of the US. Of course, there are. So you see, Cleveland lacks 4,000 supplies. If I would overlook that, we would incur some serious losses. These 40,000 can now be railed. It's not that bad. Up. You can go to Cairo, from Cairo to Evansville. So this is kind of unimaginable historically that the Confederacy would control these areas. They did raid in these areas. A guy called John Hunt Morgan at one point went up there with a few thousand cavalrymen and initially raided quite successfully, captured supplies, destroyed stuff, but then he got cornered and ended up in a northern prisoner camp, from which he spectacularly escaped with some of his colleagues, let's say. And later he was shot in some kind of skirmish. One of his biographers, he was very good, guerrilla leader. He blew up some important railroad tunnel earlier in the war, but then went against the orders of Braxton Bragg and started raiding here with a few thousand cavalrymen. So wasn't the point to control any areas, just to do damage, but he got cornered above the Ohio River. We still have 28 left, which is pretty good. What can we do with that? We can send another 10,000 to Cincinnati. It's about the largest force you would have seen in the American Civil War, 120,000. Grant controlled that much forces in the east. McClellan. I don't talk much about Union generals because I'm playing the Confederate side, but I can also play this game for you with the northern side and show you how that works. Actually, takes it can take more time to win with the North because you have to almost completely conquer the South to really win, and you don't need to conquer the entire North uh, to win. Almost pretty much any Civil War based game I've ever played has this mechanic incorporated into it. The South has a lot of disadvantages, but has to do less to actually win, or the victory conditions are simpler. And the North has a lot of resources and supplies, and it takes them a bit longer to win. I have some rail left, so and some supplies closer to the front. That's it. Up next. Well, my goal now is to capture Grafton in West Virginia, and if this had been the scenario of the American Civil War, West Virginia wouldn't exist because they split from Virginia in 1863. So a secession in a secession, Virginia seceded from the United States, and then West Virginia, the western part of Virginia, formed its own state, and it exists until today. But that was only possible because the North controlled it quite easily. It gained control of the North of West Virginia, and then there wasn't that much slavery there, so pro-slavery sentiment wasn't as strong there as in other parts of the state, and certainly not as strong as in the Deep South. So eventually, they formed their own state, West Virginia. So Virginia used to be quite huge. North is moving, and he doesn't have that many options anymore because the North really doesn't control that many areas now. You will see that. And so, if everything goes really well, we will also conquer Northern Virginia, but I'm not counting on it. So we have way more troops now, so we also lost a little bit more troops to attrition, a little bit more than they did. 88,000 to 100,000 and 8,000 here. There is a tiny chance that Lee pulls this off. Don't know if I'm really extremely tired, so other circumstances I wouldn't be risking this. But it's Lee, so who knows? Might pull it off. So selecting Forrest because of his initiative rating and the experience of the troops there. And we have Pittsburgh, that's a lot of guys there, and they will also get the recruits training there. So there will actually be way more there, maybe plus 16,000 when we arrive there. So I'm gonna select Johnston. I think he will move. His initiative is 4, I think, 4 or 6. 6. So with the initiative of 6, they sometimes refuse to move. Pittsburgh sounds 80,000, 90,000. That's good. And the more we get it, the more men we get into Pittsburgh, the better. And then from Cincinnati to Grafton, we have to take Hood. No. And then we have some commanders that they are not even trying a naval expedition anymore because they don't have the troops for it. They've been thrown completely on the defensive now. And the eye doesn't suck completely. I'm just moving troops closer to the front, and our situation has become so simple now that we have way more generals than we need for battles. And to save time, I'm not gonna think too much about what to do now. From Mobile to Decatur, when I was a kid, I always thought it was Decatur. Nobody complains. Let's see how that goes. If this goes well, then the next round may be the last one, and the war will be won in early 1863. So the South either had to win fast, or it had to drag out the war for such a long time that the North called it quits. So it's my opinion that they should have kind of done what I do in this game, even though it's a game. They should have concentrated their troops as much as possible, and they should have been very aggressive early on. But their mindset was not set up that way, neither to concentrate all their forces nor to attack out west in full force. I mean. So I actually think Lee is going to win that. Yep. Yeah, it's Burnside, so this is actually, well, it's not historically accurate, but Lee and Burnside faced off in battle, and Burnside was badly beaten, and that actually happened in Northern Virginia at the Battle of Fredericksburg. This absolutely never happens, but I think Jackson did have plans to go to Pittsburgh. So the situation for the North is now really very dire. When things start going south for the North, they also don't move on emancipation anymore because it doesn't help their case anymore. Okay, now we have +3. So maybe, just to show you if there's any difference, if I ask for recognition instead of just asking for covert aid. See. Right. So it looks like we will win without being recognized by England and France. But I suppose to other players that doesn't matter. The thing is that we win. So I will be doing the same thing. I will move as many troops as I can up north. The last chance to be recognized is to capture Washington, but if I also capture Philadelphia at the same time, I think it's over before England and France ever say anything. Oh, let's try to raise taxes. It really doesn't matter. A lot of supplies through. We stopped losing our cruisers. At this point, we're gonna have 14 cruisers. That doesn't really affect the game that much, but it's one reason uh, why we have so many blockade runners and why so many supplies are coming in. But even if I would never build cruisers, there would not be such a big difference. It's most important is what happens on land, and you break their morale and take away areas. Alright, so this should be the last round. Um, so let's start moving everything we can to the front. Only the troops, because now we have a lot of supplies actually. A lot of them. We'll try to be as fast as possible now. Move them, move them, move them. I don't really need to worry about naval expeditions anymore because they don't have the capacity. Sometimes they still do it, but really doesn't help them. Just weakens them up north, which makes it easier to areas. So we need 20 more. Now from Charleston 22, okay. That's 60. That's a lot. Let's do it. So I think again we need about 100,000 men in Northern Virginia to have a chance to take Washington, but it can be done. So we can add 4,000 troops. This supplies, and the rest needs supplies. Let's see how many get them. Over 100,000. Yeah. No, Lee never had 100,000 troops directly under his command. A little bit earlier, we had 14 supplies in all those northern cities, and because of inflation and because we haven't been recognized, production is falling. Forgive me for not going. I'm not gonna go take care of the troops that we are not using in battle anymore. So there will be a lot of attrition basically because I'm gonna be lazy. But the troops that are going to um, do battle this round will of course want to supply. So in reality, I would of course never deliberately put troops out of supplies because I'm lazy. but these are not real soldiers. Nobody is actually dying of hunger or diseases, so working. And these we can send along. It's some supplies we still need. So these will have to go and forage and look for food in the area because I'm gonna bother with rounding up supplies for them. I'm gonna still send up north these supplies via river. So again, this game went entirely different from the historical situation. That doesn't mean that this game is bad. If you stick to historical scenarios, and for example, you put your capital in Richmond, so you are forced to defend there. You are forced to send more troops to the Eastern Front. You can't start. It's then harder to conquer areas in the West, and it makes things harder. Sometimes I do it like as an experiment to try and see what happens if I um, put give myself this historical condition of having to focus on the East, but they chose to do that. So they could have decided otherwise as well, but they didn't. Karl Marx actually said that right from the get-go, he said that whoever controls Kentucky wins the war. And Lincoln saw it the same way. He said something like, I hope God is on my side, but I have to have Kentucky. Maybe he never said it, but he's often quoted like having said that. Okay, so forgive me for not bothering. I even have some rail capacity left, but I'm not going to use it. Banking on this being the last round, and if that turns out not to be true, I'm gonna be a little bit ashamed of myself. So my idea is not because of this game, that they should have focused on the West if they wanted to have a chance to win. And yeah, we would have to go much deeper into it. But I think focusing on the East set them up to lose. The war was lost in the West. Uh, their Eastern Front actually held out till the very last, but they were broken in all other places. So eventually, they were actually kind of surrounded in Virginia, and you saw maybe you caught it, but I actually lost quite a lot of troops due to attrition, and I may have been overconfident, and we might not actually win this round. We will see. Top three guys are. So here I have to use Hood. Hood because he's the weakest one of them all. Of these three, I mean. And Jackson is gonna attack Philadelphia, but it looks like it's 76,000 to 76,000. But usually you need to outnumber the enemy if you want to um, conquer a city, and they will have the advantage of getting the recruits training there. So they might get 20,000 extra even. So I'm quickly going to give everybody some assignments so nobody complains. So mobile to Decatur. Guys without a job right now. And then you pay that political price, and I don't feel like doing that. Beauregard or French-speaking Confederates, Creole from Louisiana. So everybody has a role. Yeah, okay. Let's see if this thing is over. Early 1863. Would be pretty early for it to be over already. But it depends. We have to capture Philadelphia. Actually, not Washington. If we capture Washington but not Philadelphia, it's still not over. But if we capture Washington, it will definitely be over in the next round. But maybe we capture neither one. We don't outnumber them. Their morale is super low. And we do have really great generals there. Okay, so they're all on the move. Yes, yes, I really consider. They always bicker over who gets to control. So who will win there? That's a given. Lee might win. I don't know. If we win both in so Lee won. He never actually he no he did have McDowell as an opponent, but not as the commander of the opposing army. Jackson fought against McDowell, and Jackson and Lee were like a team. We got Philadelphia. Oh, against Grant. So according to the game, Grant is the better general. But I guess morale is so low now. And Confederate morale is so high. There was all these surrenders in the valley in Washington. So this is over. So now you get something like the fall of Washington has dealt a devastating blow to support for the USA throughout the country and indeed the world. It has naturally bolstered confidence in the CSA as well. So, but we are not winning because of the loss of Washington. It could go on for a long time. It's because we do get that menu. So, yay, we will be recognized. And they are willing to open negotiations because they have lost so many key cities. Strangely, Washington is not considered a key city. So because CSA forces captured the United States capital, England announced that it will recognize the Confederate States of America. You get a different message if they recognize you without you capturing Washington. Then it's like I forgot how they put it, but then it's more of a like a shock, like oh, they decided to recognize you. This is like oh yeah, we captured Washington, so yeah. Now we like have no choice but to recognize you. The CSA has won independence, and it's a decisive victory. Um, this is now heavily influenced by all that inflation. So, but if you get recognized earlier, they give you financial support, and you don't lose that many points. So you could end the game with 8, 9, 10, 11. It's possible. So that's it. That's how you play No Greater Glory, very old Civil War game. Thank you for watching, and hope it wasn't too boring. And I have to now get out of this DOS program, chatting like this, maybe not the best method. So take care. If you want me to do more of these videos, if you want to see how you can win with the North, tell me and I will do it. Also on very hard, or if you want to see me play this game with random generals, random abilities, I can do that as well. Thank you. Take care.